What is up, everybody? Happy Saturday morning. Welcome to another edition of the live college football show here on RotoGrinders. Down to about a month left in the regular season of college football. Hard to believe how fast the time goes once you start getting into the middle part of the year. But, they were kind of breaking down the playoff race last night at halftime of one of the Friday games. And somebody said, it's interesting that right now we're still talking about maybe 20 to 22 teams having a shot at the college football playoff, whereas in a normal year at this time, you're down to about 6. So that resonated certainly. I think it's a much more entertaining regular season with all these extra teams in the mix now, and fun to talk about some of the races here as we come down the stretch. Of course, I am Justin Van Zuiden, STL Cardinals 84. Have John Laub alongside as usual. John, how you been?
I'm doing great, and I know I'm older, so I'm supposed to like the old way, Justin, but I'm going to tell you, I love this playoffs idea. The 12 games, the first round with the 4 teams on campus, like that weekend, Justin, is going to be spectacular college football. And then you get the 4 bye teams, so I'm really excited. And look, if SMU, if it was 3 years ago, are we even discussing them for the CFP 14 playoff? Not even close, right? Now, you're SMU, you're the fan base of the Mustangs. You got a really good chance here. How about Colorado? They're done if it's not for the 12 team. Now, I'm very interested in Colorado. So, yes, I love this 12 team. It's exciting right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think SMU, their only loss was to BYU. And frankly, if this was last year, the hand-wringing right now would be about whether or not BYU deserves to be in as the 4th team. Do you put in a one-loss power conference team over BYU? And now that's not a debate. So, SMU, they're at 13 right now in the rankings. Yeah. I'm not sure where they were in the college football, the playoff poll that just came out.
13-2, I believe, that's why I picked them up.
Yeah, so, they're undefeated in the ACC. So is Miami. Clemson has 1 loss. So if SMU runs the table, they'll be in the conference championship. And they should be able to control their own destiny to get a playoff spot. So I think, does the ACC have a championship game still?
Oh, yeah, they definitely do. And that's going to, so we're looking at what? We're looking at Pittsburgh, Clemson, Miami, right? So, and maybe SMU could still, right there in the ACC, right? They still got an outside shot. So this is great football.
Yeah, and Miami, they caught somewhat of a break with their conference schedule. They don't have to play Clemson or Pitt or SMU. So the breaks have kind of gone Miami's way this year, if you will. We were talking about that a little bit before the show. But in any case, it's a fun stretch run here of college football. We've got a few more regular season weeks left here, and we'll break it down as usual for you. The main slate today, a little bit more injury news than usual, though we've started to get some clarity on that. Bryson Daly, the Army quarterback who was the late scratch last week, that was a surprise basically right when we came on the air. He is supposedly good to go today for Army. Ole Miss dealing with quite a few injuries. Trey Harris is doubtful. Parrish is out. They are playing Georgia today, so probably not a huge deal either way. Haynes King is a game-time decision for Georgia Tech against Miami. That is a noon kickoff, so maybe we'll get some information on that. Virginia Tech has been banged up the last few weeks. They're starting quarterback Kyron Drones. They're starting halfback Bayshell Tootin. They're both probable for today. They've got a tough matchup with Clemson, but sounds like they are both going to go. A handful of others, that have been decided throughout the week. Garrett Green is out for West Virginia. I've probably missed a few in here, but anything else that you're keeping an eye on as far as news goes?
Well, Bryson Daly is interesting. We can talk about Uda as an option coming up. But I just noticed Henry Parrish, Mississippi running back, is now out for the season, Justin. And here's the one thing I'll say. I don't like that Mississippi running game lately with Parrish. and he's by far the best running back in the backfield, but it might up the ceiling for Dart. And I don't think we've seen Trey Harris this morning. I heard he was out, right? That like very doubtful. So I don't think Trey Harris is coming back either today. So that's pretty that changes the dynamics of that Mississippi offense here. And then DJ Lagway, it doesn't look like he's going to play, but he is warming up. I saw that. And Virginia Tech now, it looks like Tune and Drones are not likely to play their game time decisions. So I'd be very wary of that Virginia Tech offense. I think that versus Clemson, I think this could be a tough game for Virginia Tech all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's conflicting reports there. I had mentioned that they had moved to probable. But yeah, somebody about an hour ago, there's optimism that they'll get them both back, but final decision not expected to be made until warmups. And that is 3:30 kickoff. So yeah, probably not a spot you want to bank on one way or the other right now, especially given the matchup. So all right, let's go ahead and get into it. As usual, we can start at the quarterback position. Cam Ward, pretty much every week that Miami's been on the slate, we've seen Ward as the top priced quarterback. That does not change today. So he's at 10-6 on DraftKings, which is $1,000 more than any of the other starters. Dart is 96. Daly, who we mentioned, expected to be back at 95. Morris 94, Klubnik 93, McCord 9K. So lots of high-end quarterbacks today. I don't feel like we need to prioritize Cam Ward at that salary. We actually have Morris and Daly projected for higher gross fantasy points, and they are significantly cheaper. So what are you doing with this top range?
Last week, I mentioned that I wasn't in on Cam Ward at the 10-8. He's now 10-6. And I agree with you, Justin. I missed out. He had 39 points. I still was able to cash because there was other good options at the quarterback position. So I think Cam Ward in cash games, in general, I just am opposed to paying over 10K. NFL football is way different on this than college. There's more options, right, Justin? Like you can go deeper at the quarterback position. So I'm going to pass Ward here. I will say I'm a little bit interested in Dart. I mean, this is a GPP only. Look at that. We haven't projected ownership less than 5%. I know it's not a great implied total against Georgia, but without a running game, and Dart does have dual threat ability, I mean, he's like a really interesting GPP option only because his ceiling is still high. Now, we haven't seen it in about a month, so I understand that. But if you look at what Dart can do, and if this game just goes Mississippi way at home and they can slow down that Georgia running game, and I think they have the 7th best run defense in the nation. Like, it's really good, that Mississippi run defense. I do think Dart's very interesting here without any running backs. Daly's the X factor. Justin, we don't know. Last week, there's different reports, right? Was he sick? Was he just a head cold? Was it an injury? I just don't know what to make out of Bryson Daly coming back, and he's so expensive at 9.5K. So I don't have him in any of my cash game lineups right now.
Yeah, I would not play him in cash games right now. Just a little bit too risky, but and we'll get to this when we get to running back. Like, there's chalky options at running back. So in GPPs, like, everybody's going to play Udo.
Yes.
I taking him out of your GPP lineups and putting Daly in there, I think you can totally make a case to do that. But there is some risk involved there, obviously, without confirmation of Daly's status. That is another 3:30 game. So, it's a little bit risky. But the good news is, right, if you play Daly and he gets ruled out last minute, you can swap to Morris for $100 less in the same game. So it's not the end of the world if as long as we know, before they kick off.
Justin, that's a great point because we saw Army without Daly last week and they weren't good.
Yeah, so it wasn't the same offense for sure.
Yeah. And that means that Morris might have better opportunities. That game might be more interesting from a North Texas. But Chad Morris is going to throw the ball all over the place no matter what, right? They're going to throw no matter what. But I do like them without Daly to throw and be more successful.
Yeah, it's just a matter of, Army will try to bleed the clock and stuff, but that should be a fun game. I'm glad they put that on this slate. Army's still in the top 25, so it'd be fun to see where that game lands. But, again, these top tier guys, right? If you want to play Ward, if you want to play Daly and GPPs, if you want to play Morris, that's fine. I think most people are probably going to start in the 8K range because of the salaries, right? You got Shedeur Sanders at 8,900. We talked about this last week. Texas Tech has a woeful pass defense, and basically they're most subject to getting beat by quarterbacks that are just going to sling it all over the place, not the running type quarterbacks. And so it's a perfect matchup for Sanders because he just wants to stay back there and sling it. He's not a runner. That game has a 62-point total. So Sanders is 8,900. You've got Will Howard at 8,100, and Ohio State's projected for like 45 points today. You've got Sorsby just under 8K at 7,900. Like, I think this is the range where you land, and Sanders is probably my favorite today.
Oh, I completely concur. On my 3 lineups, I have 2 Sanders and 1 Howard. And that's just to differentiate, right? We know when you play DFS, and if you're putting in more than 1 lineup, you should differentiate. I mean, I really contemplated Sanders in all 3, Justin, but I just said, Will Howard's matchup, Purdue, right? You know this. You're out in Big Ten country. Purdue's not good.
Well, to be fair, Big Ten country ranges from Rutgers to Cal,
You're right. You're right. Much bigger.
Yes, I'm in traditional Big Ten land.
There you go. That's better. Traditional Big Ten land. And Purdue's defense, they're right there with Texas Tech for being bad. So, and Will Howard has the ability with his legs to score fantasy points, which is the one thing we miss with Shedeur Sanders. But the matchup, when I broke it down, even for Shedeur Sanders, Texas Tech is a funnel defense against the pass. You're going to throw the ball. We're going to talk about the pass catching options a little bit later in the show. But I think Sanders is looking at 3 touchdowns minimum with a 5 touchdown upside. So I like him a little bit better than Howard, but they're clearly the starting of your roster building in my book.
Yeah, those are definitely the cash game guys. Given the salary, if you're grading out by points per dollar, they grade out better than the 9K options for a little bit of savings there. The next range is kind of a dead zone. I'm not playing Curtis Rourke. Probably not playing Carson Beck today. Sorsby is the one guy at 7,900 that I think particularly in GPPs you can look at. I'm a sucker for guys that can run a little bit, so I'll play some Castellanos today. Castellanos at 6,600 for Boston College. That's somewhat of a risky play, but I do like him a good bit. I don't know. I'm a sucker for the guys that can occasionally get there with their legs. Looks like based on our tags that you like him a little bit today. Baron Morton on the other side of that Texas Tech Colorado game, seems like he's healthy and he's 6K. If he would have been healthy, throughout the season, I think he'd probably be higher than 6K here. So Morton, Castellanos, Sorsby, anybody else that's on your radar here?
No, I concur. Those are the big 3. I love Sorsby for GPP. I think that's a great pick because we have a ceiling that we have seen. He scored 40 points against Texas Tech, and he scored 38 points against Towson. And we have a lot of games with over 20. So I like Sorsby a lot, especially if that game shoots out. I am into Castellanos today. And one of the reasons that I like Castellanos, Syracuse plays, I believe, a lot of man coverage. And Justin, we know what man coverage does for these uber dual threat running backs. If all those defensive backs turn their backs on these running quarterbacks, right, Justin? These really good quarterbacks take off. Castellanos now, and I agree, if you've kind of been watching Boston College, he's not been the greatest fantasy quarterback, probably disappointed a little bit, but there is a ceiling there with his legs. I do like him in this game, and I think he's going to take off, and he might even get one of those big 30-yard touchdowns, So I think Castellanos is in play here.
Yeah, I like him today at that salary. I just think there's
Yes.
a shot. You can use him in your super flex. Morton probably a little bit safer, and if you're stacking up that Texas Tech Colorado game, I totally like that as well. So those are some arguments you can make. The only other guy we've got with some ownership is Jelon Daniels for Kansas. Hasn't been the year that Kansas probably expected, but this is a guy that was 9K-ish a year ago. Now he's 5,800. So I get the logic there if you want to use him as a cheap option as well. Anybody else that we missed here at quarterback?
No, I don't think so in my book. I agree with you, Daniels. And it's interesting because I've been disappointed in the Kansas Jayhawks. I expected more out of them. But if you do look in the last 3 games, Daniels has scored 23, 34, and 26 DraftKings points after a really slow start coming back from the injury. Daniels is playing much better football. So I agree with you. For 5,800, you might want to save some salary.
All right, let's go ahead and move to the running back position where let's do this a little bit differently. Usually we go, top of the salary scale to the bottom, but there's going to be 4 guys in the mid-range that carry some ownership today. 2 that are very, very popular, and then 2 more that we've got in like the 20s. So Udo for Army and Wisner for Texas are the 2 mega chalk options. Udo is 5,900. Wisner is 5K. We know that both guys have taken the lion's share of the carries for their squads. Could get 20 touches. I mean, they're cheap. Army's projected for 35 points. Texas is projected for 34 points. So do you just play both of these guys? I mean, it's interesting to me. I can give the GPP perspective, but it's interesting with your kind of approach where you generally make 3 cash game lineups. And these are the guys that a lot of people are just going to plug and play in their cash games. Are you playing Udo in all of your lineups? Are you playing Wisner in all your lineups? How are you handling those 2 really popular guys?
Right now, I'm going to say Daly looks like he's going to play from what I've seen. So what I did is I scaled back on Uda a little bit. I love Uda without Daly in the lineup. He was so good last week, right, Justin? Like, he was explosive. He had that big run. He had over 150 yards, I believe. And he had the goal line, and he had the touchdown. 2 of them. The challenge is Daly, if he's healthy, is a goal line stealer of touchdowns. What does that do? That takes Uda's ceiling off. It brings it down. So I have Uda in 1 out of 3 lineups right now. I did expect to have him in 2 lineups, but I have scaled it back to 1 because I'm worried about his ceiling, Justin. Now, I think in my book right now, I think you have to pivot out of him on GPP because I don't know if he's got that 30-point upside now if Daly's in the lineup. I love Wisner. I know we have Jaden Blue, and I know this Texas backfield has been frustrating all year long, but he's only 5K, right? I like Texas in this spot. I do think if Texas wants to win an SEC championship, if they want to win a game in the playoffs, they've got to get this running game going. I can't remember last time Steve Sarkisian running game has really been so down, right, Justin? He's usually really good. I think he's got to get it going. So I like Wisner, and he has been getting the uptick in snaps and touches. So I have Wisner in 2 and Uda in 1 right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Udo, I think, is still fairly safe. Like, I've got no qualms about playing him, but I do worry about Daly kind of taking some of that production, maybe snagging a goal line touchdown or something. So, yeah, in GPPs, I've come down on Udo just a little bit, but it's not to say that he's a bad play by any means. The other guys that are kind of pivots in that range, Corey Kiner, we've got at 22% ownership right now. Devin Neal for Kansas at 25% ownership. John kind of just mentioned how Kansas's offense has been playing a little bit better. So if you want some pivots in the mid-range, those are some guys that you can look to for a similar price point. And then obviously there's options on the high end as well. So these guys aren't going to carry as much ownership as usual. And obviously if you aren't using all of your spots with Udo and Wisner, so you probably have some lineups where you're spending up for at least one running back, whether that's Darius Taylor, Taj Brooks, LaQuint Allen. Who's your favorite spend up?
My favorite spend up is Darius Taylor. Rutgers is really bad. They're outside of the top 100 in defense against the run. I think they're like bottom 30. That's how I should say it. Rutgers is very bad, bottom 30 against the run. So, and Darius Taylor, basically a two-man offense in Minnesota, right? We can talk about the other wide receiver and option later today. But Darius Taylor, the touches are there, so I will bank on volume. I like Taj Brooks. I just prefer Taylor more. I think the matchup is better. And I'm worried. You never know where the passing game is going to go, where I feel real confident in Taylor is going to get the carries. What if Brooks falls behind Texas Tech? Now, they have in general given the ball to Brooks, but you never know. What if they're down 21-0 quickly, right? Then you're hoping for pass catching. I understand that. So I do like Brooks, but I prefer Darius Taylor. I have Taylor in one of my three lineups. I just want to pivot back. I like Devin Neal a lot. I think Devin Neal's very interesting, Justin. That Kansas offense is playing better, and the way you attack Iowa State is through the ground game. So I think Devin Neal's interesting. And is it Hershaw? The other running back is out this week. So Devin Neal should be getting more snaps and more touches.
An interesting matchup for them against Iowa State. Potential letdown spot for Iowa State. That was a really tough loss for them at the end against Texas Tech last week. So, obviously Iowa State still got outside, playoff chances, but probably feeling a little down after that tough loss last week. So, Neal I like as well. Agree on Taylor, and I think you can use some Taj Brooks and GPPs as well. Again, I've got a lot of lineups where I shouldn't say a lot, but a few where I've stacked up that Texas Tech Colorado game. Taj Brooks actually has a shot at becoming the all-time leading rusher at Texas Tech today.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they mentioned it on while I was traveling last week while that Texas Tech game was close to the end. So I had it on the radio, and they mentioned that he moved into second place all time last week. And I don't know what he needs, 90 yards, 100 yards or something to be the all time leading rusher at Texas Tech. So kudos to his career there in, Red Raider uniform. All right. Other options at running back. I mean, any interest in going super cheap? Monangai is out for Rutgers today. So Antoine Raymond is 3,400. He's probably going to get a good number of looks for them. He's bumped up in our projections. We've discussed Justice Ellison the last few weeks. Any interest in Jaden Blue as a pivot away from Wisner for Texas? Just trying to think of some other names. If there's anyone else you're interested in.
I'm not overly interested. I do agree with Antoine Raymond. He's only 3,400. He had 15 attempts last week. I don't know. So this is where watching football matters to me. I'm not sure if Antoine Raymond is really that good. Now, the scheme is right. The matchup is right. He's at home. But I can't tell our viewers that I've seen enough of him where I feel confident that he's the type of player. But if you do want cheap salary savings, I agree. 3,400, right? You could, if you put him in your flex spot and you're looking to build around him, you mentioned Colorado, Texas Tech, there's some pricey players. You could benefit from Antoine Raymond, and you're hoping he gets in the end zone, which is very possible. So I do like that. The only guy I think is interested, and he's been driving me crazy all year, Mark Fletcher, Damian Martinez, the Miami Hurricanes. Oh, my God. I wish they could just use one back, my friend.
No, it's not possible.
I know. It's just I've had Damian Martinez on so many season-long best ball CFB leagues. And they just don't.
I mean, he's proven that he can be a fantasy stud when he gets the touches.
Yes, and he was so good at Oregon State, right? But it just hasn't been the way. But I will say this: Fletcher's only 3,900. Again, a salary saver. His ceiling is limited. I would not use him in GPP. but in cash games, I do think he's an interesting option.
All right. I think, I generally don't get super deep into the player pool at running back. I mean, if I'm going to go for a YOLO punt type guy, I always prefer to do that at wide receiver. With the running backs, it's just it's so much easier to go with the guys that are guaranteed some touches. So we'll stick with the wide receiver punts if we're looking to go cheap. All right. Speaking of, let's go ahead and move to the wide receiver position now, where Travis Hunter is $1,600 more expensive than every other wide receiver on the slate. We mentioned Texas Tech as a pass funnel. So let's just discuss what to do with Texas or with Colorado in this matchup, what to do with Hunter, because Colorado has 3 wide receivers that are at very distinctly different price points. So you've got Hunter at $9,500, you've got Wester at $5,200, and then you've got Horn and Shepard under $4K. So what is your approach to those? I mean, obviously we like Colorado's passing game. So how are we handling that group today?
So when I cash game lineups in my Colorado Texas Tech build for cash game, I have Hunter and Sanders. I like Hunter a ton. We mentioned this off the air a little bit, Justin and I, before the show, and TJ. Hunter is looking like a Heisman candidate now, just the way the season's fallen. And if you watch the Heisman betting odds, you'll see that he is slowly. I think he's plus 400. I looked on Thursday, so he's plus 400 here. And you can't get a better matchup, Justin, for this passing game, right? And isn't this, I mean, it just fits the Deion Sanders. Let's get the Hunter a trophy. Maybe my son has an outside choice. I want to get Hunter into New York. So what does Hunter need? He needs another big game. And
oddly, at MGM this morning, he's actually down to plus 175.
No!
Some spots he's at like 220, 230. So, I mean, but his odds have come down significantly since Thursday. So if you want, the sports books believe, I think, that's what's going to happen today.
I mean, I thought 400 was juicy. Luckily, I got Hunter over the summer, but that's another story for another day. So I'm all in. So I got to be fair, everyone. I'm biased because I put a nice chunk down on
So
Travis
what were the
Hunter.
odds at that point?
It was 4,000.
Holy smokes. All right.
It was too tasty not to. I'm not saying I put down a ton, but you know what?
So you're not retiring?
I'm not retiring, but I am going to be very happy. But isn't this the spot? You have a defense that just can't cover. They literally can't cover people. And we've seen Hunter when Deion and Shedeur Sanders, when they are targeting Hunter, 39.3, 24, 38, 41. I mean, doesn't this seem like a Hunter gets 15 targets between, 9 and 11 receptions? I think he's going to hit the end zone twice. And someone made this is not my original analogy, but I forgot who made this, so I apologize. Aren't they going to sell him as Shohei Ohtani of college football? Two-way player. He's playing both sides of the ball. Look at what he's the top, 10 receiver in the nation. I just think this is the game where Deion and this offense get Hunter so involved. So I have Hunter on 2 of my 3 lineups, my friend.
You think he plays both ways in the NFL?
No, I do not. But I will say this, Justin. I don't know which side of the ball he plays on, but I'm starting to lean that he's going to play offense because the money seems, if you look at the money should tell you that he plays offense. Now, will he dabble as a nickel or dime back? I could see that, but I can't see him playing 4 downs or 3 downs both sides of the ball. I think that's a lot in the NFL, but I could be wrong.
It's just
He's been great.
too physical to do that.
I think so.
Full time in the NFL. So yeah, I mean, he's solidly a wide receiver 1 today. If you want to go cheaper, like I've got no issue with Wester. I've got quite a few lineups with Horn. I mentioned, if I'm going to go cheap, I'd rather do that at receiver. So Horn is a guy that I have quite a bit of exposure to as well. And there's also solid options if we go like just below Hunter into that next tier. All sorts of solid upside options. Henderson for Cincinnati, the Ohio State guys, Jeremiah Smith, Igbuka, Restrepo for Miami. Like, I'm not huge on Ward today because of his salary, but Restrepo is coming off a big game. I like him as, just an individual play. I think he's perfectly fine. So lots of strong options below Hunter's salary in that next kind of 7K-ish range. What are you looking at in here?
I couldn't concur with you more. If you don't want to go Hunter, and I understand it's hard to pay up that much for wide receiver. Man, I love Henderson of Cincinnati versus West Virginia. I think he's in a great spot. One player that, man, I was wrong on the Iowa State passing game last week. I was all in on Noel. I should have been all in on Higgins. Just it was a salary difference. But Jaden Higgins this week, he's playing. We talked about Kansas. You can throw against Kansas. The cornerbacks are not good outside the hash marks. And you know what? Jaden Higgins just gets peppered every week. Look at this. I was looking at his box scores. 3 of the last 4 games over 100 yards receiving. He's averaging about 9 receptions in the last 3 games, and he has 3 touchdowns. He's going to get the targets against Kansas, and I don't see I didn't even say, what's our ownership projected on Higgins? Because I think he's not bad, 14%.
14.
That's not bad. I love him there. And Justin, how about Jeremiah Smith? Doesn't he seem due for one of these big home runs? Maybe he hit that freshman wall a little bit. Defensive backs and coordinators slowed him down. But this is Purdue. Like, isn't this the spot where Jeremiah Smith gets a 78-yard touchdown in this game? Like, I just feel like this is the game where he really pops off because he hasn't been great in the last couple weeks.
Not sure what happened there with Cards' microphone, but that was pretty crazy. So we'll see if he's going to jump back in and figure out what to do. That was nuts. I didn't know if that was me, if that was him, what was going on there. But
TJ, I thought the same thing. I'm like, wait, is my computer break? What did I do wrong? I'm looking quickly. Hey, we all know. We've all been there. Hello,
Did
Justin.
I go robot mode again?
That wasn't robot mode. That was like like it was just the wildest crazy noises that were like that came in.
It kind of sounds like it. That hadn't happened in a long time, and literally nothing changed on my end. Like, I had no idea.
That was a brand new thing that we hadn't seen before.
Well, apologies if I blew anybody's ears off, but we're hopefully back. I won't talk about Igbuka anymore and Smith. Maybe that's what did it, but hopefully that doesn't happen again. But sounds okay now, I presume.
Yeah, you sound great right now. I admit, I thought it was my fault. I was like, what happened to my computer?
Javon says I got hacked by Elon. The aliens are coming, says Mike. We'll see. Nobody's knocked on my door just yet. All right, back in action. Holler if that happens again. Just cut me off, and I'll reload the room. But moving into that next range, like again, we like that Colorado Texas Tech game. Josh Kelly coming off a huge game against Iowa State there last week. I think he's probably a lock for most people today. Who else are you kind of looking at in that 5-6K range?
I agree with you on Josh Kelly, and that's one of I said I have a Texas Tech Colorado stack, and I like Josh Kelly because we do want to stay away from Travis Hunter, right? You mentioned it, Justin, that Travis Hunter plays both sides of the ball. Everyone should know that by now. And the best way to stay away from Travis Hunter in general is you go into the slot. And that's where Josh Kelly excels. So I do like Josh Kelly Maybe Hunter only lines up on him less than 25% of the time. So we do have good matchups for Josh Kelly running from the slot. So I agree. I like him a lot there. I like him that game. Now, I really did. Antonio Williams is interested, but I don't know if Virginia Tech can push Clemson now, right? I just think Virginia Tech can't put points up on the board. And why do I say that? If Clemson doesn't have to throw the ball, I think they'll just go to their run game with Phil Maffa, right? So I'm kind of off Antonio Williams, and I've liked him all year. But one player, we hinted at it earlier, folks, Daniel Jackson of Minnesota, right? 5,500. Oh, yum, yum. If you don't have Darius Taylor, now I don't have a lineup with both, and I would stay away from two Golden Gophers. If you got two Golden Gophers, hey, you got more guts than I do. I can't put two in the DFS lineup. But if you don't have Darius Taylor, I do like Daniel Jackson against Rutgers. And he's been very good the last 3 weeks. 12, 36, 19 fantasy points on DK. And it is a two-man offense in general.
What may have been made me go wild hacked mode is I did kind of at the same time that happened, I did load the YouTube stream on my screen to look at the chat, and it started auto playing the video. So maybe that's what screwed it up, but wanted to make sure I checked out the YouTube chat. So I've answered a couple questions in the chat. D3 had said earlier, no interest in the Clemson game. John kind of just hit on that. Depending on the status, we just don't know the status of those Virginia Tech guys. If they are out, it increases the risk of a potential blowout there. If they're in, I think I'd be a little bit more interested, but Maffa is certainly the guy that would be the safest play. We didn't really touch on him at running back. That was more of an accident than anything because we were talking about those other super chalky guys. But Maffa, I think, is certainly fine. The passing game, I'm a little more weary of today. So that's kind of my stance on Clemson.
And that's why I like Klubnik, but I can't take them. I'm worried about them blowing out Virginia Tech. And if you want Klubnik, I think you need an offense that can push them.
And then somebody had also asked, is it okay to play Sanders without a wide receiver? And in cash games, I certainly think that's fine if you don't want to try to guess where it's going. But in GPPs, because Sanders does not run, like if you were playing Sanders in a GPP, then you're banking on him throwing for a bunch of touchdowns or 400 yards. And somebody from that wide receiver group is going to have a huge day if that happens. Yeah. So I think in GPPs, you have to pair him with somebody. Just, take your pick. So
I concur. And you know what, Justin? I think you could pair him with two wide receivers if you really want to in the GPP. Because if we're going to win a GPP with Colorado, I want to differentiate a little bit because a lot of people will do that. So I'll stack two Colorado receivers and maybe I hit the nuts, right, with both of them scoring twice.
All right. Let's see. And if you have other questions that you want to get answered live on the air, the best way to do that is through the Discord, which you do not have to be a premium subscriber to RotoGrinders for. Just a regular member, rotogrinders.com/Discord, and we are in the live stream chat channel. We'll answer your questions in there if you have them. Okay, let's move down the wide receiver range a little bit. Anybody else you're interested in as far as mid-range, cheaper options today? We discussed Minnesota kind of being a two-man show, so you've got Daniel Jackson there. Elijah Surratt for Indiana is still fairly affordable. Dominic Lovett for Georgia is projecting fairly well. Singleton for Georgia Tech if Haynes King plays. Like lots of guys in that 4 or 5K range you can look to. Who else are you looking at in that middle tier?
Well, I don't know if I'm going I don't know if I'm going too low at this point, but Tony Johnson is Cincinnati. He's 3,600. I like him a little bit. He scored 17, 21, 8, and 15 DraftKings points in the last 4 games for Cincinnati. So I like him very much as a low price salary saver there. Elijah Surratt is interesting. My friends, Michigan's defense isn't very good. Indiana's for real. At least I think, Justin. What do you think? You like Indiana? They're a good football team, right? What do you think?
Yeah, they're good. I think let me looking at the rest of their schedule here. So they are at Ohio State, their next game. They do have 2 weeks to prepare for that, and then they close with Purdue. So what would be interesting for me is if Indiana runs the table, if they lose to Ohio State, if that's the case, Ohio State's going to have the tiebreaker, and the championship game is going to be Ohio State and Oregon. So if Indiana beats Michigan,
yes,
loses to Ohio State, and beats Purdue, are they in the playoff?
That, you can make, I think they're a good team. I do. I'm not saying they're great, but are they one of the top 12 teams? I think you can make that argument. I really do. I think they're underrated every week. I've been on them for about a month now. I've been watching them. And the reason I bring it up, Elijah Surratt against Michigan's depleted secondary here, and they're at home. I do like Elijah Surratt. You had mentioned Ward, right, earlier at 5,200. I wish the salary was a little bit less, because you do have DT Sheffield at the top of the pecking order for the mean green. But I do like him. I get people, I'll say this. They want Colston Loveland. I've read, it seems like a lot of people aren't. I'm a Michigan guy. What is the ceiling of Colston Loveland? Like, I don't understand. Michigan's offense is so bad, right? I just don't get it. There's no way I'd ever play him in a GPP. I guess in a cash game, but I'm not really into it. And then the other guy, some people, do we take a Mississippi receiver? Is there value in the Mississippi wide receiver core? I think that's an interesting question.
Watkins got about 100 points last week.
Yes. And you have Watkins, you have Lee, right? Caden Lee, probable. You do end up with Daquan Wright. So there might be value in Mississippi, and it looks it right now. We have I see Trey Harris is doubtful. So I do think there's value in the Mississippi wide receiver core that no one's talking about.
And yeah, Don Yeezy had just asked about that in the YouTube chat. So certainly Watkins at 4,700 if you want to run it back again this week. And then he had also asked about power ranking the Colorado receivers, which Hunter obviously just comes down to salary. My second favorite is Horn, just because he's under 4K, and I've found that helps with a lot of my lineups getting that cheaper guy in there, and certainly some ceiling there as well at that salary. The one other guy that's grading out okay in our projections as a punt is Wesco for Clemson, because he's basically mid salary. I don't have a strong take there. Again, worry a little bit about their ceiling today if that game doesn't stay close. But any other receiver thoughts for you?
I don't think I have any other deep salary savers. Let me just look real quickly. And I'm not into the Clemson passing game. Oh, there is one guy I got in one lineup. Geez, I should have said this. Jacoby George of Miami. He's only 3,900. If you're hoping, if Cam Ward throws another 4 touchdowns, Jacoby George, you're banking on the touchdown. He had 17 points last week. He's actually scored double-digit DK points in 4 of the last 5 games, but I wouldn't use him in GPP because I don't think he really has a ceiling.
All right. With that, I think we have been through most of the DraftKings options. What we do at this point is remind you that we'll be here every week for the rest of the regular season, but we like to talk about John's 4 favorite plays for this week, the Fantastic 4 options on DraftKings, and then we'll chat about FanDuel a little bit before we get out of here. So take it away with your Fantastic 4 for this week.
Excellent. Everyone, you can go to our optimizer. You can plug in my Fantastic 4, and you can get up to 20 lineups. You can do GPP or cash game lineups. And this week, my Fantastic 4, I'm going to give you options. I like it quarterback, Thomas Castellanos. I talked about him earlier. I think his rushing upside against the man coverage secondary, I like them a lot. They're at home, Boston College, so I like Castellanos. Then you can choose Sanders and or Will Howard, however you want to build at the other quarterback. at running back. I think for 5K, Trey Wisner or Quinton Wisner, I've seen him printed both ways. The running back for Texas at 5K. I like the uptick in snaps, in touches. I do think this Texas game needs to be get under wraps, so I do expect them to try to run the football. This is a very good matchup where that Texas game might be able to get on track against Florida. I like Wisner at 5K. I also like Phil Maffa. I didn't bring him up because I kind of knew I would talk about him in our Fantastic Four. I think this game script now, I was shocked, Justin. Did you watch last week's game where Clemson was falling behind and they literally just kept feeding Phil Maffa the football? I mean, I loved it because I had him in my cash game night lineup. But I'm like, they almost didn't try to throw the football last week in the second half, even though they were trailing. It was a really weird.
They looked horrible.
Right? Didn't they look horrible? And let me think, Maffa had 30 carries. Now, from a DFS standpoint, I was very happy. But it definitely was it was a weird second half for Clemson. I love them in this matchup. And then I have them in, I said it earlier, 2 of my 3 lineups. I have Travis Hunter. That's why I gave you some value. We've had some plays today that are under 4K. So my Fantastic Four and our optimizer today, Castellanos at quarterback, Maffa and Wisner at running back, and Travis Hunter at wide receiver. It gives you enough options. You can build a nice lineup around Hunter.
All right. Like those calls as well. And Golf Nut in the Discord chat had asked just before we got to that point about Wesco and Jacoby George. So, yep, think both of them are fine. And John talked about George there as well before we wrapped up. All right. Probably don't need to spend a whole lot of time on FanDuel today. FanDuel has added some later games. And there are some solid night games tonight. Florida State and Notre Dame, probably not. At Florida State's team total tonight. Their team total, Florida State. Now, this is a team that was number 10 in the country or whatever at the beginning of the year. They've obviously been probably 10th worst. But their team total tonight is 7.5.
I couldn't believe that, Justin. I was like, is that a misprint?
1 touchdown. That's how the mighty have fallen there at Florida State. But we do get Alabama LSU tonight, which is probably like an elimination game for playoff eligibility for the loser of that one. UCF and Arizona State, pretty sneaky good fantasy game there. And I believe Scatabo is out for Arizona State tonight, so maybe a little bit more on their passing attack. Oklahoma State and TCU. We've got Tennessee on the slate tonight as well. So some fun options in these late games. In terms of quarterbacks, I mean, it adds Gabriel, Milroe, Josh Hoover, Riley Leonard, Levitt, if you think Arizona State will pass more, Amaliava on the late slate. So lots of good late night quarterbacks on FanDuel tonight. You like any of these guys in your all day slate?
Oh, I like to have this. I got one little sneaky lineup with the LSU Alabama hammer. Give me Milroe and Nussmeier late at night, as you can do that on FanDuel, where we can find value at other positions. I do prefer Milroe of the 2, but he is a lot more expensive. But I do like the Nussmeier very much at home in Death Valley against the defense that hasn't what we're used to seeing at Alabama, right? So I do like this Alabama LSU. Now, you have to live with all day you're going to be playing from behind. But, man, I really love having that late hammer of LSU Alabama stack.
Yeah, I don't mind those late night hammers at all. Come from behind and sneak your cash at the end of the night. Always fun. And I always like to say, whether it's late night games in MLB or whatnot, at the very least, it postpones your disappointment to later on.
You always have hope.
There's always hope. So that's my saving grace with that strategy. Running backs, I mean, if you want to pay all the way up, you've got Dylan Sampson. Jordan James, RJ Harvey, Ollie Gordon. If you still want to believe, I think you could take a shot in GPPs. Anybody you want to touch on there?
Well, I mean, I think the question is I cannot get Sampson with the LSU Alabama stack. So if you don't I decided now, I do think Sampson's the best play on the slate, but you can't, at least I couldn't. I could not get 3 players over 10K, or I guess technically Nussmeier isn't over 10K, but he's 9.5 or something like that. So I bypass Sampson. But if you don't want to do the double LSU Alabama, I think Sampson's by far the best running back option. And I have Sampson and Ollie Gordon when I did not go Milroe and Nussmeier, because I think Ollie Gordon, man, he's finally come. This is hilarious. He's finally come down in price where I'm happy with it, right? 8.8. We were seeing him at 11K early in the year. There's risk because he's like a roller coaster, but I do think Ollie Gordon at that price is worth it.
Totally agree, and I tagged him on the night slate, or on the the night slate on DraftKings as well,
yeah.
And that all day slate on FanDuel for that reason. So, and then lastly here, wide receivers. We'll get out of here. Savion Williams for TCU. They've kind of been using him as a hybrid pass catcher running back type. He's been good. I saw somebody mention in the YouTube chat earlier, Jordan Tyson could be in for a big night for Arizona State with Scatabo not playing as well. So, and Lacey, if you're on Nussmeier, you can certainly play Lacey for LSU. Anybody you want to touch on at wide receiver on FanDuel?
One guy that I found, and I'm still watching closely, but Mississippi, Caden Lee at 5.8. If you really want to go up for those quarterbacks, you need to find a nice wide receiver. I like Caden Lee at that price. And I couldn't agree with you more with Jordan Tyson. He's been playing some really, really good football. Probably most of us have not been watching enough Arizona State, but they've actually been pretty interesting. I think they're 6-2, if my memory serves me right now. Arizona State is pretty good. And Jordan Tyson, he's only 8K with 100-yard ceiling on a regular. He's really good. He's a home run hitter. So I like those two.
All right, that'll go ahead and do it here for our show today. As always, we appreciate you joining us. Don't forget, DFS is all about value, and this is the busiest time of the year on the sports calendar, so the perfect time to sign up for RotoGrinders Combo Premium. For a limited time, you can get your first month of combo access for just $79.99. That's only $5 more than NBA Premium by itself. So don't pass up your great value, and be sure to hit that thumbs up button on the YouTube stream before we get out of here. Almost 200 of you watching would appreciate if you just take the 2 seconds to click that button before you get out of here. So John, good luck to you today. Thanks for joining me as always. TJ, thanks for producing behind the scenes, and we hope you all have a great weekend. Happy Veterans Day on Monday to anybody that is a veteran. Thank you for your service, or if you have veterans in your family, hope you can enjoy your Veterans Day with them. So thanks to everybody for joining. Thanks to TJ. Thanks to John. I am Justin. We'll see you next Saturday, everybody. Take care.